Welcome back to the WFT Declassified podcast. I'm your host, LE. We got Eric in the building. Eric, what's up?
What's happening?
We also got Brian in the building. Brian, how's it going?
I'm alive. I'm alive after yesterday, so
That's
it's
right.
going.
Brian's ready to spit fire tonight.
He is ready.
I can't wait.
Tonight is the official Carson Wentz Declassified episode. If you've been riding with us from the beginning, you know these are our deep dives into individual players, not opinion, just facts and information. Why are we having a Carson Wentz Declassified episode? Because your Washington Commanders just traded for Carson Wentz and a second-round pick and a seventh-round pick. They gave to the Colts a 2022 second and third-round pick, as well as a 2023 conditional third-round pick. That pick can become a second-round pick if Carson Wentz plays over, 75% of the snaps. That then becomes a second-round pick.
Yeah.
So, before we get started, make sure you are subscribed on all platforms, audio platforms. We are on Spotify, Apple, Google, anything that you can get a podcast on. We are there. And then, of course, all of our YouTube followers, subscribers, whatever you're called. We appreciate you guys as well. Like, leave comments, subscribe, do what you got to do to stay locked in. Let's start it. Eric, tell us about Carson Wentz. Who is he?
Carson Wentz. He is this is going to be his seventh year. Can you believe that? Drafted in 2016, and somehow this is going to be his seventh year in the NFL. Drafted number 2 overall by the Philadelphia Eagles in 2016. They traded a boatload to get him. Coming out of the quarterback factory that North Dakota State University has become. Also, Trey Lance's alma mater, probably another one coming down the pipeline soon. Traded to the Indianapolis Clots last year. Played okay, terrible down the stretch. Basically, he's the reason that really solid roster is not in the playoffs because of the way that he played specifically in the last 2 games of the season. You can say whatever you want about the games before that, but those last 2 games were just awful for Wentz, and he pretty much cost him a playoff spot this year. As far as play style goes, personally, last 2 days I've been watching quite a bit of Carson Wentz, and what I find what I really came to the conclusion of is people that like Taylor Heineke should really like Carson Wentz because they have very similar play styles. They're both really good off schedule. They're at their best off schedule. They're good outside the pocket. If Taylor Heineke had a cannon arm and was a monster like size wise, I mean, it would be Carson Wentz. It's the big, Heineke's clearly faster. Wentz has gone through a couple of injuries, but Wentz just has a monster arm. He has an incredible arm, and Terry McLaurin's going to love that. The big knock coming out of North Dakota State on Wentz was his mechanics were terrible. Footwork was bad, big windup. He spent his first year in the NFL cleaning that up under Doug Peterson and Frank Reich, and he got much better, but he still does occasionally revert to that, and you'll see these atrocious throws from him. And he is a gambler. He takes a lot of risks, and he has apparently talked his way out of 2 cities thus far. So I am not 100% sure how this is going to go, but I don't think it's a complete disaster. He is, in my opinion, definitely. I don't even know if it's my opinion. It's everybody who's not insane's opinion that he's better than what we had last year. He is a very clear upgrade from Taylor Heineke, just from a physical standpoint. He can make the throws that Heineke was unable to while still being able to make plays with his legs. But he is a bit of a gambler, a little bit of a gunslinger, much like Heineke, so he can get himself into some trouble. But I think he's an upgrade over Heineke. I think the team is better with him. Is he the best guy out there? Is he the guy that I wanted? Go watch my 5 quarterbacks we should stay away from video, and I'll tell you. You can go back and watch that. He's clearly not the guy that I wanted, but, if you can't be with the one you love the one you're with. I'm all in on Carson Wentz 2022.
Wow.
Yeah,
what choice do I have?
We don't.
Those roll with Heineke people right now. They just need to be launched into the sun. I'm sorry. They're done. I can't do it with them anymore. As much as I like Heineke as a backup, it's very clear he should not be the starter. Carson Wentz is a miles ahead of him as far as quarterbacking goes.
Yeah, what's interesting? You said that he was Taylor Heineke, but bigger and stronger with a better arm, and that's exactly what I thought as well when I was starting to look at it. I've never watched a lot of Carson Wentz until recently because I never had a reason to. But you're right. You're spot on there. Coming out of college, some other things that were on his draft profile. A great velocity thrower. He can chuck the football. I mean, that's
He
what
has
he.
an arm. He has a
Yeah,
legit big, strong arm.
yeah. He's the best fit for him coming out of college, according to some of the professional evaluators, was a vertical passing offense because of that arm. Now, you're going to have to ask yourself questions about Scott Turner's offense to see if that's a fit, because Scott Turner's offense to this point has been a very lateral offense. Now, that could be because of the talent at the quarterback position or lack thereof. So we will learn about Scott Turner's offense this year for sure.
You knew who I thought Carson Wentz, and this is my untrained quarterback guy, Carson Wentz reminded me of coming out of college, was
Who's that?
Kaepernick. He reminded me, just not quite as fast, but he was, I mean, before, he's had some injuries, but he was very athletic early in his career and was a very big, tall, lanky runner with a huge arm, just like Kaepernick was. Not great mechanics. I thought maybe he's a little bit of a better passer. He's definitely developed, I think, into a better passer. But yeah, that was what I thought of him coming out of North Dakota State based on what I saw of him.
I think one of the biggest things I remember about Carson Wentz coming out of college, and I mean, mostly it was positive, right? Every evaluator said, this is the guy, this is a franchise type quarterback. But one of the things that stuck with me, and I think is probably still true today, which is why he's going to be ending up on his third team, is his penchant for looking for that home run ball versus completing the pass that's in front of him or hitting the check down that's in front of him. Something we saw similar to Heineke, always kind of.
Who's that remind you of again? Yep.
Right.
I was going to say.
Exactly.
But he can actually throw the home run ball.
I mean, for me, to me, that I call that the hero ball, right? Like they're looking for that 50, 60-yard touchdown. Now, he has the ability to do it, which is absolutely great and something we've lacked here for, a couple of years. So is he going to be able to balance that? I think it will be the question, or will be the biggest thing we've got to watch out for. Can he kind of keep that balance, or is it going to, cost him too much?
Yeah, some information came out a couple years ago that some of the issues with Wentz, or the fact that he doesn't go through his progressions. He tends to, it's either first progression or he's going to try something he shouldn't throw when it's not there. And looking at it further with the evaluation from college, it says he anticipates the first read extremely well, right? He throws that anticipatory route very well for the first read. It gets dicey beyond that. The negatives for him coming out of college were he's slow to process the reads. But he gets by with that because of arm strength, right? His arm strength bails him out constantly. Which, if you look at what his production has been, which we'll dive into in a minute in the NFL, that's absolutely true. He relies on his arm strength to bail him out of bad mechanics and out of not going through his progression. So he's thrown a lot of things late, which gets you into those problems with some of the turnovers that he's had over the seasons. And below average accuracy on routes between 20 to 30 yards down the field. Now, he's a guy that can throw the home run ball and he can hit you all day, up to, 20 yards. But when you get in that 20, 30-yard range, things get really, really dicey for him. So we'll touch more on the statistics and on the field a little bit. But, Brian, tell us who he is off the field.
Well, this is the juicy part, right? So with him being in Philly and in Indianapolis, we've got, 2 cities worth of stories by journalists kind of detailing his behavior in the locker room with teammates. And now, the first thing I'll say is Carson Wentz hasn't been in any trouble, right? That's we're not talking about, any kind of criminal activity or anything like that. He is a family man that we know of, but it becomes a problem, from some of the stories that we first heard coming out of Philadelphia, his kind of presence in the locker room. There were complaints from several teammates in a couple of stories from several journalists in Philadelphia about him not kind of taking accountability for some of those plays that you guys just kind of detailed there, where he does kind of take these excessive risks or instead of kind of just doing what the offense gives him. And then when it fails, not saying, hey, that was on me. So there were lots of clashes over accountability, over some of his leadership. And then, we heard, once he got injured in that Super Bowl year, That's when a lot of the stories started to come out about Carson Wentz and kind of how he dealt with teammates. And from there, we've heard, it's been reported that hard coaching is something that he is very resistant to. And that's not even, like a criticism where coaches are trying to give to him. It's just, hey, we need you to try it harder. We need you to do it faster type things. And he seemed very unresponsive to that style of coaching, which is probably a majority of NFL coaches. I'm sure there's a handful who are a little bit more quiet and reserved, maybe like a Tony Dungy or something like that. But I imagine most of these coaches are, trying to get after some of these players if they're not performing well. So, those were a lot of the things that we heard in Philadelphia. And again, there were multiple stories with numerous Eagles players, all saying the same things about his character, lack of leadership, his resistance to hard coaching, and also lack of accountability for some of the risks that he takes within the offense, because then it affects the entire team when those risks don't succeed. Then he gets traded. The team that drafted him, that moved up, Philadelphia Eagles traded picks to move up to draft him, and they traded him. He goes to Indianapolis, and he's there just 1 year, and we're already hearing stories about the same thing. Zach Kiefer of the Athletic just put out a story, I believe it was yesterday, detailing essentially kind of the same things that happened in the Philadelphia locker room, that happened in Indianapolis as well too, with the lack of accountability, players not liking the him taking some of these chances. We just talked about some of the bad play towards those last 2 games of the year where he didn't take the ownership of his own play. Again, same type of resistance to hard coaching. A week ago at the scouting combine, the GM, Chris Ballard, said publicly right in the media interview that Carson, that he had a talk with Carson, and he told him, you have to take criticism better. You have to learn from it and grow from it. If a GM is telling, that conversation publicly about his starting quarterback, usually it is a red flag. How big, is up to people to kind of discuss, but it's not good when you're the starting quarterback and that's the discussion about you, is that you don't take criticism well, and that the GM is telling you you have to learn from it and grow from it and mature from it. Carson Wentz is 29. He's almost 30 years old, and he can't take criticism and learn from it and grow from it, and be able to understand, hey, maybe I need to do some things better. So we've seen some of the behaviors kind of carry over from Philly to Indianapolis. Is this a wake-up call for him now coming to his third team here in Washington? We hope so, because those types of behaviors, I don't know how well that'll go here in this locker room with Rivera and the culture that Rivera has been preaching. We're changing that. We're trying to get a good culture, and to bring a player in whose behavior has been questionable in 2 cities so far. So very much a big question mark on who he is as a teammate and a leader, and especially at the quarterback position. Those are hot button topics.
So here's where I feel like we can potentially get around that. I'm not saying that we will. I'm not saying that we won't. Number one, we know John Allen likes to throw uppercuts if you get out of line. So that should help some. We saw him do it to Deron Payne. But I think, there's no Deshaun Jackson. No offense to Deshaun Jackson, but we have Terry McLaurin as his best receiver. Terry McLaurin is one of the most mature athletes I've ever seen in my life. Hopefully those two form a bond and a relationship to where Terry can rub off on him and help him develop. One of the things that makes me nervous, though, to your points, is that Scott Turner's not all that much older than Carson Wentz, right?
Yeah.
And from what we've seen from Scott Turner, and you don't know because we're not in a locker room, but Scott Turner doesn't seem to be the forward and out front kind of leader. You know what I mean? He's kind of one of the guys type leaders. So there's definitely some concern there. Is it going to be a catastrophic problem? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And I wouldn't assume so, just because, you would hope with players getting paid millions of dollars that they can turn things around, that they can mature, but you just don't know.
So as far as Scott, the point you made to Scott Turner, that could actually work in our favor. Yeah, I mean, if the rumors that he doesn't respond to hard coaching are true, and Scott Turner is not a hard coach, not a hard coaching coach, if his coach, I mean, it's very possible that their personalities could mesh. I have to take the Athletic article with a grain of salt because it's very clear that what happened in Indianapolis is that the owner, Jim Irsay, wanted Carson Wentz gone. So Chris Ballard is a good soldier, and he's going to do what he's going to do. Frank Reich wanted him in Indianapolis. Knowing what he knew about him in Philly, he brought him to Indianapolis. He stuck up for him. And I think when the heat got too hot and, I think it was over the vaccination thing, whatever it was with Irsay, did not want Carson Wentz around anymore. Chris Ballard's going to follow Irsay's lead. Frank Reich's going to shut up and do his job at that point. I'm not 100% sold on everything that happened in Philly also happened in Indy. I haven't seen any negative. I haven't seen anything come from players. Not that there's been a lot of support for him either. I've seen like 2 tweets from a couple of guys, like Darius Leonard tweeted something and one of his receivers did. But I haven't seen anything like nobody's leaking out from what I've seen, rumors that, this is what was going on. Everything that I saw or I've heard that came out of Indy is top down, comes from the owner who wasn't happy with Wentz for whatever reason. So I'm not 100% sold on that. It's very possible that it's true. I've heard things people say that Wentz necessarily isn't a leader, but he's more of a teammate than a leader. And a lot of guys want their quarterback. A lot of teams want their quarterback to be the team leader. He may not be that guy, but I think Washington has very strong leadership in John Allen, in Terry McLaurin, guys like that. So I'm willing to give Carson Wentz a chance, and I'm going to take that in the article with a grain of salt.
I will say, it's definitely a red flag because if you think about the quarterback position in general, right, they get all of the attention, they get all the praise. When things are going good, they get more of it. So, that position in general gets more leeway than the other positions. So for him to have kind of been moved on from by 2 teams, there speaks to something that he had to have or said or something to a large degree that whether it's coaches, whether it's players or the ownership didn't like, whatever it may be. It could be personality, it could be, hey,
the Philly thing when they, he kind of went into a funk when they drafted Jalen Hurts, and that's a red flag. That for sure is because
and that's
he
one of the ones
let something affect his play that year because he was good leading up to that, albeit injured and not as good as his MVP type season his first year. But when they drafted Jalen Hurts, something clicked. So
that's part of those the reporting.
So that I'll go with. Yeah, I think you're gonna have to manage personalities very well this year if you're dealing with Carson Wentz. I think he definitely seems like he has a little bit of a diva quality. I just know, Irsay wanted him gone for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure it was because he wasn't vaccinated. That was the big stink of it. COVID restrictions are gone from the NFL this year, so hopefully that won't be an issue. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But yeah, it was definitely, I don't think it was as bad in Philly as what their management has led us to believe.
I will say one good thing is if we know anything about Rivera, he may not be the evaluator talent that we all want him to be, but I don't think it's a question about his relatability to players, how he handles players, how he can reach some players who may be kind of, labeled as difficult. So maybe this is something that maybe only Ron Rivera can do in reaching Carson Wentz and getting him to kind of, hey, conform a little bit more or kind of change some of his ways. So I think that out of all of it, that's probably our strongest asset is Rivera in kind of saying, hey, let's change some things here. Let's put this thing together here for this upcoming season. So I do like that portion of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking at the statistics regarding Carson Wentz, and I think this really does paint a good picture of what you're getting in terms of quarterbacking. So Carson Wentz is a rookie from PFF was a 69.9. That was 22nd best. His second year in the league, he was an 84.7, which was 6th best in the league. So you immediately saw that progression. I believe 2017 is a Super Bowl year for the Eagles in which Nick Foles finished out the Super Bowl. The following year, with a little bit of controversy. And this is interesting because, Eric, you brought this up with Jalen Hurts when he was drafted. His performance fell off a little bit. Well, Nick Foles got all the acclaim after the Super Bowl. Carson Wentz following year, he was a 79.4. That was 14th best. It wasn't as good. Granted, he was coming off an injury, but there was a little bit of a slippage. And then he followed that up with the 76.5 in 2019, which was also 14th best. So he maintained some consistency. And then, of course, they draft Hurts. Then he's a 65 PFF rating, which is 32nd best in the NFL. And then, of course, last year he was a 70.9, which is 22nd best. You add it all up, that's a 74.5, which means he's about 16th best in the NFL on average. To give you an idea of who would be in that range, that's the Mac Jones range for last year. That's Matt Ryan in Atlanta, and that's Jalen Hurts in Philadelphia, believe it or not. So that's the range of quarterback play that you're going to get. Now, one thing that we like to do in statistics is we remove the best result and the worst result to see where you are, because those can always be outliers, right? And where that leaves him is 18th. He's the 18th best quarterback when you remove his best season and his worst season. And where that puts him in the NFL is Teddy Bridgewater. Now, imagine that, right?
Yeah.
We were talking about, free agents and Teddy Bridgewater. But when you look at Teddy's statistics, his completion percentage was 66.9. Carson Wentz last year was 62.4. Teddy Bridgewater had 3,000 passing yards. Carson Wentz had 3,500. Teddy Bridgewater had 7.2 yards per attempt last year. Carson Wentz was 6.9. Carson Wentz had 27 touchdowns. Teddy Bridgewater had 18. Teddy Bridgewater had 7 interceptions. So did Carson Wentz. Now, here's where it gets kind of weird, because Carson Wentz had 8 fumbles last year. Teddy Bridgewater had 1. So there's a lot of statistical, things that are similar there. Some things are obviously different, but you get a sense that when you put it all together, that's about equal between the two performances in various capacities, right? Because those fumbles take away from the touchdowns, so on and so forth. And so what we've essentially got is maybe a more athletic Teddy Bridgewater running the offense this year. That's a weird way to think about it, because you don't automatically compare those two, but in terms of output and results, that's about what you're getting. Last year by the NFL in their starting quarterback index for last season, Carson Wentz was actually 19th. Teddy Bridgewater was 18th. So what I'm trying to say is those statistics add up to Carson Wentz being somewhere between your 16th and your 18th best quarterback in the NFL. Can we live with that? Absolutely. Is that going to propel us a long way? That remains to be seen. A couple other notes here before I get into some things I want to ask you guys about Carson Wentz. His QBR average for his career, and this is quarterback rating, is 57.7, so slightly above average, right? Because I think your average is 50 on a scale of 100. He's 57.7, so he's just above average. Again, reflecting on that Teddy Bridgewater, Mac Jones comparison, he is right in that group. Eric, his injury history, how much does that scare you regarding Carson Wentz and his availability for us?
We can plan on seeing Taylor Heineke under center next year. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Wentz played 17 games this year for the first time. I think it was the first time in his, obviously 17-game season, but I think it was the first full season of his career. I could be wrong on that. But he generally misses games. So, and of course the, catastrophic knee injury will definitely do that. I think he hurt his back one year. He generally plays though, but he has a history of some big injuries. You can bank on him probably missing a few games next year. We'll see Heineke. And if I have to watch Heineke for 2 or 3 games, not in a row, I think I'm fine with that next year. I think that's right about where you want to see Heineke, because he's, you can limit his exposure in a smaller set of games. Injuries are going to be a concern with Wentz. I think we can just bank on that. But he was healthy last year. He's in a new offense, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, the 2020 season where Washington sacked him, it was like 8 times in week 1, I think it was.
Yeah.
You remember that game?
Yeah.
I always refer to that game as the game that Carson Wentz broke, because I think that's where he really started going downhill, when he started seeing the pass rush that week. And he didn't recover the rest of the season mentally from that. So it'll be interesting to see if he can stay healthy and stay upright. You're going to get hit when you're playing the NFC East, or you're playing Micah Parsons. some of the Giants D linemen, things like that. So you're going to take your hits. Hopefully he's sturdy enough to withstand those hits.
I think one of the things to note is I remember watching the Colts earlier this season, and Carson. It was like the second game of the year. Carson Wentz injured like both ankles, something crazy on like one play, injured both ankles. But he continued to play and didn't miss any time. But the story on ESPN was that Carson was cognizant of the fact that he was kind of getting the rap or the label of an injury prone quarterback, and he didn't want that to continue in Indianapolis. So, he fought through some of these injuries, rehabbed hard so he could, continue to practice and play in the games. So it'll be interesting to see if he kind of still takes that approach here in Washington, and whether he's, motivated. Hey, I'm on my third team now. I don't want to, I want to make this work, or, if he's, if he kind of goes the other way and shuts it down if he gets injured. So that'll be something interesting to watch.
Yeah. And it absolutely will be. And Brian, is he a fit in your mind for Scott Turner's offense?
So, yes, if you think about his mobility, if you think about his strong arm, if you think about his ability to make quick throws, absolutely. That part works, but there's also kind of a downside to it. Is we mentioned it just a few minutes ago. His kind of tendency to hold the ball a little bit longer, looking for that bigger play, right? Hey, this play is schemed to hit Terry at about 15, but I'm looking for that deeper De'Ami Brown 60-yard pass. So I'm going to hold it. I'm going to move around and put myself more at risk for that. And that, I think, is that part doesn't fit. I don't think that fits anybody's offense there when you're kind of doing things unnecessarily. Those obviously can lead to great plays, but they can also lead to those fumbles that you were just mentioning as well. But I think, first glance, if you look at it, the way he's built some of the skill set that he has, yes, I think he fits Scott Turner offense.
It would be very interesting to see what changes that Scott Turner feels like he has to make, and what changes he's willing to make to that offense to fit Carson Wentz, excuse me. One of the things that you want to do with Carson Wentz is run the football consistently. That's when he's at his best. So you obviously have Antonio Gibson. I think we all think that we're going to draft a running back at some point in the draft who can also eat up some carries. So, hopefully they implement that to help Carson Wentz out. Eric, there's two schools of thought in terms of Carson Wentz, right? Because you can get out of this deal after this season. Okay. So there's one school that says, use them, burn them up. We don't care what happens because next year we can re-rack and start over. And then there's the other school that says, well, we have an option next year to release him, but if he plays well enough, we should keep him around, and this could be a long-term starter. Where are you in terms of the viability of Carson Wentz as a long-term option for us at quarterback?
The jury's out on that. I don't know what he's going to do here, but I do know that a happy Carson Wentz is a better chance of being an effective Carson Wentz. I think Washington needs to commit to him more than just this year. Doesn't have to be a major commitment. First of all, for cap reasons, I think they can free up some cap space if they move some of that money, some of that salary into bonus money or roster bonus and a signing bonus, whatever it is. If they get stretch that over 2 years, just make us say, look, man, you're here. We traded for you. We want you here. Here's a commitment, not just, we're going to see how this works. Because I think, Carson Wentz, has a history of getting into his feelings when he feels slighted. I would suggest to this team, make a commitment, even if it's a small one. Keep him here, stretch it out over 2 years, give him, have some guaranteed money next year. So I would do that. So I don't know if he's going to be the guy, but I know he's got a much better chance of being the guy if he's not thinking about his contract and thinking about things other than what he needs to do here. So I'm in the school of thought that you do give him, you're not necessarily an extension, but I think you restructure his contract. You reduce your cap hit for this year, allow you to go sign some other guys, and you make him feel like he's actually wanted here and he's not a one-year rental.
Yeah. When we first traded for him, I was not thinking like that at all, but I have since come around to that I think you're probably right. You've made this commitment in terms of picks, right? And even though we didn't give up a metric ton for Carson Wentz, you've given up a second-round pick, right? You've given up a third that can potentially become a second-round pick. That matters. That matters in the NFL, especially when you're team building And at some point, you're going to become cap strapped. So you need young players coming in to help you out. So now that you've made that investment from a draft pick perspective, I think you have to give it at least 2 years. And I really love the point that you make about Carson Wentz's psyche. And, you know, when your starting quarterback hears headlines and tabloids and things like that, should you have to do this? No, but it is what it is, and you've already made the investment, so you need to make him comfortable mentally to see if you can get the best out of him. And if that means adding another year of guarantees to get to that point, so be it. You still be in a position to draft one, even if, or a rookie next year, even if you commit more dollars to him. So I don't see what that hurts. Brian, what are your thoughts on that?
First off, that's a great point by Eric about Carson Wentz and his sensitivity. Right, a happy Carson Wentz is a more motivated, a better player than we've seen him in the past. So that's something that Rivera is going to have to be cognizant of, and he's going to have to manage constantly. I think with somebody like Carson, you're gonna really have to kind of check in with him every day, every game, and see where he's at. Now, as far as the commitment to him, for me, why? I don't know that he's done anything to warrant a commitment to him, and I understand the kind of his mindset or his sensitivity that we probably should capitulate to him and do all these things for him, but that really hurts the team. This team doesn't have a quarterback that it's drafted on its roster right now that will be under contract past with the exception of Carson Wentz, who we're still not sure of will make it past this first season. We don't have anybody else. This will be Heineke's last season on this particular deal, an undrafted player, that we have on here. So, for me, this team really has to be thinking about the future as well, and not just, Carson Wentz's feelings. And they really kind of need to take a hard approach with that and say, do we get somebody? Does that mean that they take somebody in the first round? I would love that, but I understand that that may not be the route that they're choosing to go. But can we get a second round quarterback? I think you kind of have to. You let Kyle Allen go today, or you released him from his contract. So you're only going to have Heineke and Carson Wentz. We already know Carson Wentz injury history, so that means you would just have Heineke. I mean, it's almost guaranteed that Heineke will start. So who else are you going to have? Let's have a guy that we develop. Young, capable passers. We've seen it time and time again. They may not work out for your team, but guess what? They're bargaining chips for other teams, because those other teams, they always think, I can turn this guy around. I can make this the next Carson Wentz. I can rehab him. He can now be, my Ryan Tannehill project. So, I don't think they should give anything else to him other than, hey, we're going to support you the best way we can. Here are the players. Here's the coaching, but we need you to go do the rest of it. I don't think we need to try to change any contracts outside of, we do need to make some cap moves, because Carson Wentz contract just ate up all of that cap. But we were talking about extending Terry. That now is kind of in limbo or flux with this. So, that's kind of where I'm at with Carson. I'm not hitching my saddle to him at all.
All right. So when it comes to wins and losses, Eric, what do you think the Carson Wentz effect will be?
I'm thinking similar to what you saw in Indy last year. I'm thinking they're on the wild card threshold, 9 to 10 wins. Well, I'll go between 8 and 10 wins. Could go either way. He is an upgrade over what we had last year. This team played a brutal schedule last year with Taylor Heineke quarterback, still managed 7 wins. I think this team with a better quarterback, I don't see 10 wins as a problem or as out of the question. I could even stretch and say 11 if everything goes right. But I mean, I'm going to stick in that 9 and 8, 10 and 7 threshold for next year. We'll be knocking on the door of a wild card. And if things break right, maybe the division.
Okay. Brian, where are you at in terms of win-loss improvement with Carson?
The Colts were 9 and 8. The year before, they had a broken down Phillip Rivers, and they were 11 and 5. And that's without the Jonathan Taylor kind of breakthrough that he had this past season. We had 7 wins with Taylor Heineke. We're supposed to have a softer schedule this season, but each schedule each year is different. That doesn't mean it guarantees you any wins. I see Carson as a slight upgrade, and 8, maybe 9 wins, but realistically, 6 wins or 7 wins may be in our future if that defense is not improved. Even if we can score some more points, if we can't keep the other team from scoring, it'll be no use. So ceiling 9 wins, actuality probably
Ceiling
6.
is 9 wins.
Yeah, I
Wow.
don't see Carson Wentz being able to do with this roster what he couldn't do with a Colts roster that has a lot of talent, offensively and defensively. I just don't see it. I don't see it like
9 wins is the ceiling. That's impressive.
I
mean, I
wish
would
I
go,
wish it was
honestly,
more.
for me,
I wish it was
I would
more.
say the absolute ceiling is like 12 wins, because if everything breaks right, the NFC is the weaker of the two conferences. The AFC is a murderer's row of quarterbacks now. You don't have that in the NFC. I could see, I'm not saying it's going to happen because it's like literally like perfect scenario, but I could see 12 wins as like the ceiling, but I'm going to stick with my 9 to 10. But man, 9 wins is a ceiling. You hate that guy. You hate Wentz. You're a Wentz hater.
I don't hate Wentz. I hate the production that he gets out of these teams that he has. I mean, he was set up for success this past year. And like I said, a broken down Phillip Rivers, he could barely throw the ball down the field. I mean, his arm was shot, and he led them to an 11-5 season, even behind a amazing performance by Jonathan Taylor this season. I mean, I don't even know how many yards he had, but he had a ton, and still couldn't do anything.
So, for me, I look at a couple different factors. Last year, Taylor Heineke was a 27th ranked quarterback in the NFL. He threw 15 touchdowns. Carson Wentz only threw 7. That 50% nearly less interceptions is a big deal in the NFL. That is a big deal in the NFL. Carson Wentz also had more passing touchdowns than Taylor Heineke did. Carson Wentz had only 1 more fumble than Taylor Heineke. And listen, the defense caught 15 of Taylor Heineke's interceptions. They probably left another 10 to 12 out there that could have been intercepted or picked off that they didn't get. So what I'm trying to tell you is, just based on the lack of additional turnovers, I think that there's going to be some win positivity in there. If we were a 7-win team last year, my assumption is we'll probably be anywhere from 2 to 4 wins better. So I'm going to say, between 9 and 11 wins. The other thing that I think we're not taking into account is players in the locker room need or sometimes benefit from a player with pedigree. The number 2 overall pick, Carson Wentz, has been thought of as a very good quarterback by a lot of people in this league. I bet you when this trade went down, Terry McLaurin's eyes lit up because he knew Heineke was trying his darndest, but he knew it wasn't good enough. Now he has a quarterback that can push the ball to him. You know who Carson Wentz's best friend is? The tight end.
Mm-hmm.
Guess what? Logan Thomas is going to be healthy this year. We didn't have Logan Thomas hardly at all this year, and when we did, we had a quarterback throwing hospital balls. Logan Thomas is going to be back with a vengeance. And with Carson Wentz targeting tight ends like he does, that's production we didn't have last year on top of everything else. So you have another year of Gibson maturing. All of those factors to me signal that we should be a much better offense than what we were last year. The question will obviously be on defense, but when it comes to purely Carson Wentz impact, I think it's somewhere in the 2 to 4 game range for me. I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to say we're going to be 10-7, and I think that will be enough for the wild card. It's not because I think that Carson Wentz is amazing. Like I told you, statistically, he's somewhere between Mac Jones last year.
Good enough. Yeah.
He's good enough. And Teddy
Taylor
Bridgewater.
Heineke wasn't good enough. Carson Wentz is good enough.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. This team is not a Super Bowl contender with Wentz by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think it's really a division contender. I mean, it just depends because this division's weird, but I don't think realistically like we're a shoe in for the division title because we added him, but we should be significantly improved to the point where we're at least a wild card team and maybe sneak a win in the playoffs, possibly. So I think the addition it's a positive addition. I don't think it's going to put us over the top, but I think it's definitely a move in the right direction. It's going to make us better, should make us better than we were last year.
I got a question. We were talking about Jameis Winston. One of the things that Eric, I think you brought up was, and it was a good point, the Sean Payton factor, right? Sean Payton really kind of manufactured the offense for Jameis to throw it here, read this, take away some of the decision making from Jameis to cut down some of the interceptions, turnovers, bad decisions. I think Frank Reich was very much in the same vein this year with the Colts and with Wentz. Hey, this is what we need you to do. Hey, run this run-centric offense, and we need you to make a few plays and limit some of those mistakes. And they got better performance out of them, but it just wasn't enough. Do you guys see that as a similar kind of thing there with Frank Reich and Carson Wentz? And do you think that we can kind of recreate that? Can Scott Turner be the Frank Reich and Sean Payton with a quarterback who has had some kind of turnover prone tendencies?
It's a fair point. That's hard to say. I mean, Wentz really has been pretty good most of his career. He had one really bad season. That was 2020. That was the one season where he was legitimately just awful. He rebounded last year. I don't know how much Reich reined him in as much as just tailored the offense around him, I guess would be the way to put it. I don't think he was the guy just saying like what Peyton would have done to Jameis was like, this is where you're going, don't deviate. I think Wentz probably had some freedom. Clearly he had some freedom because if you watch his highlights from last year, he was running all over the place. Yeah. So I don't know that it's quite to that level. I do expect probably to see more turnovers from Wentz next year because the offense is going to be different. I'm actually really curious because this will be, I said earlier, it's going to be his 7th year in the league. This is his first year outside of that system that he's been in because he was under Peterson. Now he was under Reich. It's pretty much the same offense. Now he's going to a Coryell style offense, different play calling style, different route trees, completely different concepts. So I'm curious to see. I personally think it does suit him better because in theory, it's supposed to be a more vertical offense. J.D. McKissick's probably not going to see as many, if he's back, he's probably not going to see as many balls his way because Wentz generally isn't a big passer to his running backs historically. But I think that, I'll be curious to see how that works out. How quickly he can grasp that offense and, push the ball downfield. I definitely think there will be a lot more deep balls next year. A lot more. I think Terry McLaurin and De'Ami Brown and Curtis Samuel are going to be happy.
Yeah.
We're hoping so.
I mean, he made Michael Pittman. I mean, Michael Pittman was a beast this year.
Yeah, he was.
Just catching 50-50 balls from Wentz. So look what Terry McLaurin can do with those.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Eric, is that, yes, Pittman was great, but he bailed Carson Wentz out a ton.
Sure.
And Terry McLaurin is not a go up and get it amongst 3 DBs kind of guy. He makes acrobatic catches. He does some things really well after the catch, but I don't think of him as a high point jump ball kind of guy. Maybe that's what De'Ami can do, right? That remains to be seen, but let's see. His averages for yards a season, I want you to tell me if you think he's going to be above or below this. I'll start with you, Eric. He averages about 3,400 passing yards. Do you picture him being above or below that this year?
I'm going to go above. I think he's going to, because I think Scott Turner's going to throw more than what Frank Reich has done in the past. Okay. And Peterson, I think he's going to get more opportunities to throw because Turner is historically pass happy.
Yeah. Brian?
Oh, I agree. Turner is a pass first offensive coordinator. So I think he's going to get a guy like Carson and he's going to go nuts, 35, 40 plus attempts a game.
Okay. He averages 23 touchdowns a season. Eric, above or below?
Above. He can threaten, again, provided he's healthy. He can actually threaten. The team record is only like 31, the Washington team record for season. Yeah. And that was Sonny Jurgensen in a 14-game season. He can threaten that record if he's throwing as much as I think he's going to throw next year. We'll see, but I think he's going to be higher. I think he'll be in the 25 to 30 range.
Okay. His career high is 33. Brian, above or below 23 touchdowns?
Above. Again, with the more attempts, his penchant for taking that deep shot, he'll have more.
Okay. Now his interception average is 9.5. Eric, are you above or below the interception average for him?
I'm above. I'm thinking 11 or 12.
Okay.
Most likely. Yeah, I think he's going to throw more than 10 next year. Again, because of volume and the new offense.
Okay. Brian, what about you?
It's going to be above. He's going to have a lot more freedom here, and yes, the volume is going to go up. It's going to be 12 to 15.
12 to 15.
It's going to be Heineke range. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Get
Lord,
ready.
okay.
Get ready.
So he does tend to fumble the ball quite a bit. He has 66 fumbles in his career. So if you do your average, it's about 11 a year on average for fumbles, which is quite
total.
a bit.
That's fumbles total, not like lost fumble, right?
Right. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Fumbles total. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't have the loss number, but Eric, above or below 11 fumbles this year?
Probably right at.
Okay.
I don't see a change. I mean, he does it every year. I don't see it changing here.
Okay. Brian?
Above. Again, he's going to be taking more chances, more freedom. Ball's going to be out.
Okay. Well, so folks listening, this is our Carson Wentz Declassified episode. Look, in all, what we have is a quarterback who is what we believe at here at Declassified better than what we had last year. He's not necessarily what we set out for this offseason, but he is an upgrade. And I think we need to think about it in terms of an upgrade on the field. We'll see what things look like and how they come together during the offseason programs, training camp, and then, the regular season once that kicks off. One thing I want to say to everybody before we get out of here, everybody listening, everybody watching, be careful with the quarterback hot takes. I think sometimes you start to pigeonhole yourself into hating or loving something, and then you tend to watch games to try to prove yourself right rather than just enjoying the product on the field. Enjoy the product on the field. Watch the quarterback. Let's cheer for the team. Let's see what happens. And then if it doesn't work out, we'll regroup and figure out a plan for next year. Eric, any final thoughts on Carson Wentz?
17-0. Going 17-0. Super Bowl. Wentz league MVP.
All right.
GOAT.
Goat
No, you
stats.
know who I think we should – I would actually look at bringing in to groom behind him. Looking at that play style. Desmond Ridder. It's like a mini Wentz. All the same knocks, all the same traits. Faster, though. 4.5.
It's not bad. It's
Maybe
not bad at all.
if Desmond Ritter's around a little longer than he should be, I'd pick him up.
Second round pick.
I don't know if I'd take him in round 2 because I think you can do more with that round 2 pick, considering you don't have a round 3. But if he's still there in like 4, I absolutely take him.
Oh, he's going to be gone by then.
I would not be surprised. We're going draft now. Sorry, I wouldn't be surprised to see him there in round 4.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, he's fast, but watch him play against Alabama.
That's a lot of guys.
That's what he's going to look like in the NFL, especially if you take him in round 2.
To me, Ridder reminds me of Mariota. Just really athletic, but just struggles throwing the football. Like they're very similar, kind of in their play style and their physical form.
Yeah. Brian, final thoughts on Carson Wentz?
We have a guy who has at least shown in the past to be an effective quarterback. Is that pass going to resurface? Well, we'll find out. Hopefully, Carson really kind of looks at this as this is a fork in the road for me. I need to really kind of figure out what I need to be, who I need to be, and hey, like his GM in Indianapolis said, can I take some criticism and can I learn from it and can I grow from it? Because he's got an opportunity here. There's not going to be any quarterback competition. He's going to have some weapons here, and he's in a weak division. He can actually kind of change the story about Carson Wentz this season. He can really kind of change the narrative and make it a great comeback story. So that's very possible, and that's all something that can happen. So if you're a Commanders fan, that's something that you should be thinking about, and hopefully Carson is thinking about that too.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening. If you've made it this far, make sure you subscribe. Tell your friend to tell a friend. Carson Wentz Declassified is in the books. And yeah, we'll be back with some more content soon. So thank you all.